And I think for Bitcoin to grow by a factor of 100x from here, we need for the banking system of the world to support Bitcoin. The guy buys up the beautiful pieces of property, and so you can't afford it.
Right.
And if the rich guy wasn't buying up all the beautiful houses, they would cost half as much. And you could live in a beautiful house. It's returning 4 times the S&P index and twice the Magnificent Seven. It's going to generate 60% return. By the way, it's growing 3 times as fast as your company. It'll be 7% of the world's capital. It'll grow 29% a year. ARR for 21 years. It'll go to 13 million a coin by the year 2045. Everybody owning the empty real estate got rich. The offices are empty. No one's using the office space, but the value of the office buildings doubled. I'm not allowed to even go to the office, but the guy that owns the office, I have to pay the rent. The guy that owns the office just had the value of his real estate double. While the entire system is basically stacked, the good people are destroyed and the people doing nothing are enriched. And it kind of made me angry. And then the last point is we had nothing to lose. The company's $300-something a share now. So it worked out well for my employees and my shareholders that we didn't give up. But most people, I think they get to the point in their life where they just give up because, I mean, isn't that what most people do? People think I'm a trader, and I'm not a trader, I'm an engineer. I'm engineering a better world. I want Bitcoin to spread because I think it's going to engineer a better world for
What do you expect with this incoming administration when it comes to Bitcoin and the regulatory environment?
Well, I think what we clearly heard from Donald Trump is never sell your Bitcoin. Big question was, does the United States sell Bitcoin? Does the United States buy Bitcoin? If you recall, the German government sold a lot of Bitcoin at $55,000 a Bitcoin. It turns out to be a more than $1 billion mistake in a couple of weeks. Big mistake. Mm-hmm. And people used to speculate, well, you know, is the government going to dump the Bitcoin? Are they not? And now what you see is Trump is pro-Bitcoin. And with the red sweep, that means the Republicans run the Senate, control the Senate, and they control the House, which means the pro-Bitcoin senators, like Senator Lummis, have now moved from being in the minority to being in the majority. In the minority, you watch the laws being written. In the majority, you write the laws, you pass the laws. Before November 5th, there was actually broad consensus in the House and the Senate. So what I would expect is that SAB 121 will be either withdrawn by the SEC or it will be repealed, and the president will support the repeal. That opens the way for banks to custody Bitcoin. That opens the way for the entire banking system to embrace Bitcoin. And I think for Bitcoin to grow by a factor of 100x from here, we need for the banking system of the world to support Bitcoin. So if I think about the consequences for Bitcoin, I think what this means is it's an acceleration of pro-Bitcoin regulations. I think that we'll see in-kind creation and redemption of Bitcoin ETFs. I think we'll see the repeal of SAB 121. I think we'll see support for Bitcoin within the banking system from the banking regulators, from Treasury, from OCC, from SEC. I think you'll see more supportive legislation from Congress. I think it will be approved by the White House. I think that this is a signal to accelerate institutional adoption. I think that the previous administration had been hostile to Bitcoin mining, hostile to Bitcoin banking, hostile to the Bitcoin ETFs, and the failure of Silicon Valley Bank followed by the shutdown, I mean, effectively the forcible liquidation of Silvergate and Signature, even though those were solvent banks. I mean, they were perfectly healthy banks that were actually forced into receivership by a hostile administration. I think that had caused the banking establishment, reasonably enough to be skittish and to be conservative and a little bit slow to adopt Bitcoin because they could see there was resistance in the administration. I think that now, with a new administration, with President Trump coming to the Bitcoin conference in Nashville and saying, I will end the war on crypto, I will end the war on Bitcoin, I will support Bitcoin, we will not sell our Bitcoin, we're going to make Bitcoin in America. America is going to be the capital of Bitcoin, right? The fact that he said that, I think that sets the tone at the top. That means I think, number one, it seems inconceivable to me that a head of the Treasury or the CFTC or the SEC will be appointed that is anti-Bitcoin or anti-crypto, right? That seems quite obvious. We know that Trump is all in on crypto, all in on Bitcoin. So I think that we'll have favorable, supportive cabinet members. I think the second thing is we know we'll have a supportive Congress. Congress was already in favor of Bitcoin, before November 5th. We'll have a supportive Senate. The Republican senators were already in favor of Bitcoin. The Democratic senators have been sidelined and won't have any power in this regard. So Elizabeth Warren's agenda is going to become largely a thing of the past and irrelevant in the White House, in the Senate, and the Congress of the future. So I think that all of this suggests an acceleration of institutional adoption. It's a signal that it's okay for insurance companies to think about insuring Bitcoin companies. It's a signal that it's okay for banks to bank Bitcoin and crypto companies. It's a signal that it's okay for Wall Street to start to embrace, endorse, and advocate Bitcoin, right? It's a signal that the president and the administration is going to look at things like Operation Choke Point as hostile to the interest of the industry. If you combine that with the pro-business and the pro-American agenda of the red wave, it's pretty clear that this administration wants to grow business in America. It wants to deregulate. It wants to strip away handcuffs. It wants to lower taxes. It wants to accelerate progress and then the passage to the future in the United States.
That you're making about Bitcoin being digital capital versus digital currency. How do you envision Bitcoin actually assimilating with all these other fiat currencies, including the dollar? Why do we need 160 different currencies? I mean, technically, Bitcoin allows you to facilitate these types of transactions in a borderless 24/7 way.
I think if you look at the world today, there's $900 trillion or more of wealth in the world. A lot of that wealth is invested in real estate. A lot of that wealth is invested in equity. A lot of that wealth is invested in gold, in art. A lot of that wealth is in currencies. A lot of that wealth is in bonds, corporate bonds, governmental bonds, and then a lot of that wealth is in various other forms of derivatives. The compelling use case, the most important use case in the world, the most valuable thing in the world is just long-term capital, long-term store of value. That's worth half of all that. $450 trillion worth of long-term capital, right? When people struggle with what's the use case of Bitcoin or what's the use case of anything, well, the irony is they're staring right at it. It's like to be rich and stay rich forever. It's what everybody wants. It's what every kid wants. Every 3-year-old wants this. There's no one that ever lived in the history of the world that didn't want more money, more power, right? They wanted wealth and prosperity. So that's worth $450 trillion. Capital. That is the compelling thing. Now, what is currency? Well, currency is the medium of exchange. It's what I swap in order to get my gasoline or in order to buy a donut, in order to pay the rent. And it's the high frequency liquid money, liquid stable high frequency money. It allows 400 million companies to have a price list with 100 items on it. So you've got billions and billions and billions of prices in a certain in a certain currency, and we need to swap that back and forth at high frequency. Well, how valuable is that? I don't know, 10 trillion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 trillion? Not 450 trillion. A very simple use case, or a simple acid test is, Jeff Bezos, worth 200 billion. How much of the 200 billion is invested in US dollars? Pure dollars in a savings account or a checking account right now? What, 1%? You think he's got $2 billion cash? No. He probably doesn't, Bernard Arnault, worth 180 billion. How many dollars or euros do you think Bernard Arnault has right now right? Not even 1%. So if the 450 trillion is the wealth, right? That is assets held for capital preservation. The other 400 trillion or 450 trillion assets held for utility. I have this house, so we can have this interview. I like the backyard. I like the pool. I could park a yacht in the backyard. I like it. Utility.
Can't live in a Bitcoin.
The yacht is a utility. The jet is a utility. The chair is a utility. The art is utility value. It's okay. You own the sports team because you want to go sit courtside and root for the team, right? There are a lot of you own Apple because you want to root for Apple and you want dividends maybe. So you own a bakery because you like the idea of creating cool things with the bakery. You own the restaurant because you love the restaurant business. You own a resort in Hawaii because you want to invite your friends to the resort in Hawaii. There's a lot of things in the world that are held for their utility. You should own a bond because you want to clip the coupons. You want fixed income in a secure currency. In a world without digital capital, without perfected capital, then we have to monetize the real estate, monetize the bond, monetize the stock, monetize the art, monetize, everything under the sun. What does that mean? It means that you pay twice as much as it's worth. You pay 50 times earnings, but the company's only worth 10 times earnings, but you pay 50 times. Why? I know wealthy people, they own 16 estates on the Eastern Shore, and they live in 2 of them. Like, why do they buy them? They land banking. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Well, the guy makes a lot of money every year, and he doesn't want to put it in a savings account, so he goes and he just buys a cool piece of property, and he buys another one. Well, okay, it sounds good, but here's the problem. The guy buys up the beautiful pieces of property, and so you can't afford it.
Right.
And if the rich guy wasn't buying up all the beautiful houses, they would cost half as much. And you could live in a beautiful house. So here's what happens. Some rich dude has 27 houses that are empty. You don't have a beautiful house. You have a family. Your kids, your dog could use the beautiful house. The rich dude doesn't even want the house. He just wants a long-term capital preservation strategy, right? And so that's a perverse incentive and a distorted economy. That's broken. That's broken money. That's because the rich dude is using an estate on the Eastern Shore of Maryland as a piggy bank.
Yep.
Huh? But the estate doesn't get renovated. The house is falling down. There's a beautiful pool on the water, and you could have a great family picnic there every Sunday, but it's not going to happen because the rich dude has 16 other houses. He just bought that house because he thought it was a good investment. Okay, that's wrong, right? So when you come back and you look at this, currency's not worth that much. This is the big idea. Everybody's scrambling over digital currency, blah, blah. I want Bitcoin to be a currency. It's not worth much, right? If I said to the richest guy in the world, Jeff Bezos, or Elon Musk now, if I said, hey, I have this little token, and you can use it to buy coffee, and you don't have to pay 2%, to Visa. You can pay 1 Satoshi. Mm-hmm. How much of it you want to buy? I'm like, I don't know. I guess I can buy 0.0001% of my wealth. I would invest in that. Like, I don't need that. It's no problem for me. If I said, oh, I have digital capital, it's returning 4 times the S&P index and twice the Magnificent Seven. It's going to generate 60% return. By the way, it's growing 3 times as fast as your company. How much of that do you want to buy?
All of it.
All of it. All of it. Okay, so the richest guy in the world wants to buy $100 billion of Bitcoin. The richest guy in the world wants to buy, I'll buy like $10,000, $5,000 of your digital token just to mollify you, right? To patronize you. So the point is, digital currency is not really worth that much. I mean, as an investment. It's not that it's a bad business, right? The world will run better if the $1 trillion, and it sounds like a lot of money, $1 trillion, if 1 trillion, $10 trillion goes from analog money in the banking system to digital money, and you move it like Tether at the speed of light, oh, the world will work better. It'll be great for a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I don't really think it's as valuable as the equity of the AI company that thinks everything all the time 1 billion times faster and 1 billion times better than us. I don't think it's as better as Tesla if Tesla creates 8 billion robots that then make more robots, right? I think there are a lot of other ideas, right? Making currency move at the speed of light's a good idea. Mm-hmm. But, having robots do everything for us and everybody having a genius Jarvis that does everything 1 billion times faster and better than they would do it. I think those are good ideas. But obviously, I think the best idea is Bitcoin. The best idea is long-term capital preservation for this civilization, money that lasts forever, right? Immortal, indestructible economic energy is the best idea. And so you ask, how does this all fit together? Well, what's going to happen is Bitcoin is going to grow some amount. Right now it's growing 50 to 60% a year. It's going to grow 50 to 60% a year, and gradually it will decelerate to the rate of double the S&P index. It'll grow 20% a year, 25% of the S&P is growing 10. And when that happens, it'll be 7, right now my forecast in July was it'll be 7% of the world's capital. It'll go 29% a year, ARR for 21 years. It'll go to 13 million a coin by the year 2045. Probably you would be more bullish today after November 5th. I think that the political winds are actually more favorable today. But when Bitcoin does that, there's still going to be the Tesla, Elon thinks Tesla will be worth $30 trillion. I don't know that he's wrong. I mean, I wouldn't bet against him. Everybody's bet against him is lost, right? Right? Elon's winning. They're all losing, right? And so
he has some Bitcoin.
And he's going to win with Bitcoin, and that's going to make him a fortune too. So I think equity is going to grow. I think we're going to tokenize other assets. I think the digital assets industry is going to grow. I think that digital currency will grow. I think that we'll probably recapitalize a lot of the world on Bitcoin instead of bonds. But I think there'll still be bonds. I think there'll still be bonds. There'll still be equity. There'll still be real estate. There'll still be art. I think that gold will be progressively demonetized, and at some point, gold will just be viewed like silver. I mean, silver is, I'm wearing a silver belt. Imagine this is a gold belt buckle. I can afford this. I can't quite afford a solid gold belt buckle. I couldn't afford the solid gold belt buckle before Bitcoin. Maybe I could now.
I'm sure you could.
But the point is, I wouldn't buy it now because it's going to devalue until it's worth silver at some point. Because at the end of the day, it's just a little bit better than silver. And ultimately, it's going to be the Bitcoin belt buckle you're going to.
It's outperformed every stock in the S&P 500. It's dominated over the last 4 years. Why have we seen so few companies follow in your footsteps?
I think in 2020, as I told you, after 10 years of doing I tried to buy the stock back. I spent hundreds of millions on sales and marketing. I I rebuilt every system in the company from the ground up. We rebuilt all the products again. A third time, I had the most brilliant people working for me. And after I tried every possible conventional technique, nothing had worked. COVID hit, lockdown hit. The stock was cut in half again. And after the stock was cut in half, and we had a $500 million company worth $250 million. And after the stock was cut in half, the only thing we had left was $500 million of cash. And then Jerome Powell said, well, we're going to set the interest rate on the cash at 0 and keep it there for 4 years. And I was like, well, and it's illegal to go to your office. And after you've been beat to death, and to add insult to injury, we're under home arrest. Jerome Powell says our cash is worthless and he's going to keep it worthless forever. The stock has crashed. All the big tech companies are hiring away all my employees. Then now they just have to repat their browser and they'll go work for Google and Facebook and Amazon. They're like, why'd you leave? Well, I'm getting stock options. Well, our stock is worthless. Our options are worthless. After all that, to add insult to injury, when the Fed dropped interest rates to 0, everybody owning the empty real estate got rich. The offices are empty. No one's using the office space, but the value of the office buildings doubled. I'm not allowed to even go to the office, but the guy that owns the office, I have to pay the rent. The guy that owns the office just had the value of his real estate double. And then all those companies on Wall Street, their stocks doubled. And I looked at the world and I said, there's just a major disconnect. There's Main Street. If you work for a living, if you own a yoga salon or you run a restaurant or a bar, you operate a cruise line or you go knock on doors or you do something or you fly aircraft, you take risk. You're not allowed to work. Your company's shut down and you're bankrupt. And it's your fault. And if you try to work, you're an enemy of the people. You want to go to work, you're going to kill grandma. Okay? So that's like, okay, well, the entire system is basically stacked, right? It's stacked to oppress, crush, suck the soul out of Main Street, and you're the enemy. It's your fault. And then on the other hand, Wall Street, their stocks all double. They all got rich. They're the best year of their life. And this is the perversity. By the late summer of 2020, if you owned a $2 billion hedge fund, you had $4 billion, you actually got a $200 million payout, you're on a floaty, in your pool, in the Hamptons. Everyone's telling you how smart you are. You're a genius. You did no work. You just got rich because the interest rates went from 350 basis points to 0, and all the assets doubled. And so it was in that time I looked at it and I said, this is really effed up, right? This is really distorted. These are distorted. The good people are destroyed and the people doing nothing are enriched. And it kind of made me angry. So somewhere between despair, frustration, anger, irritation. And then the last point is we had nothing to lose. Right? Why did we do it? Because we tried everything else. We had nothing to lose. And I had all of these things in front of me. And I said, well, it's pretty obvious if the system is rigged in favor of the property owners against the working class, then I had a working class company. I said, I'm either going to sit here and play the game the way the system is, hold my cash at 0 and lose 10. At that point, the effective inflation rate was 20%. We were going to lose $100 million a year. I was going to basically get beat to 0. If we could either work ourselves to death and be beat to 0, or we could take the money, right, and revolt against the system. And it's like switch to the Bitcoin standard. So I thought, we have nothing to lose, everything to gain. We have no chance of winning in the old system. It's not clear to me that the new system will be successful, but I know the old system is a certain death.
Right.
So there's a point at which the ship is sinking, You're either going to get in the lifeboat that have you ever been in the lifeboat that you get in when the ship is sinking? The answer is generally no, right? The percentage of people that are first-time lifeboat users is like 99.9% normally. Maybe there's one crew member that's been in a lifeboat, but probably not. So
why haven't other companies followed suit more?
Because they were looking at a certain death. Because the other companies, you have to get to the point where you're looking over the edge of the abyss and you realize you're looking at a quick death or a slow death or take a risk. Okay? And I suppose the equivalent, when other companies get to this point, there's a conventional and there's an unconventional exit, Natalie. The conventional exit is sell the company. Or go private, an LBO. So out of 100 competitors of mine over the course of 30 years, 99 of them sold themselves. So normally the way that people basically exit, they even call them exits for entrepreneurs. I had a lot of exit. It means they got to the point where they couldn't grow the company anymore, so they sold it. So you either sell the company or you go private, which is the same as selling the company to private investors, or you shut down you go bankrupt, right? But it's more often you just sell the company. So I would say a lot of companies did go bankrupt after COVID. A lot failed. A lot sold themselves, right? And the unconventional approach is you merge with Bitcoin, right? You invert yourself and you adopt a Bitcoin standard. Now, the impediments to doing it are you had to understand Bitcoin, so it takes 100 hours. And you have to know enough to know, and I suppose you still have to have hope. Because, my choice was sell the company for $18 a share, which would be when we had like $7 a share in cash. So sell the company for whatever, $10 a share effectively, and give up, retire, and declare victory. That was my choice. Or take a risk, right? Whatever, the company's $300 and something a share now. So it worked out well for my employees and my shareholders that we didn't give up. But most people, I think they get to the point in their life where they just give up. Because, isn't that what...
What is the most misunderstood thing about you?
People think I'm a trader, and I'm not a trader, I'm an engineer. They're like, well, how's this trade going? Mike Saylor's got a trade, such and such made $1 billion, he's down $1 billion, he's up $1 billion, he's up $10 billion, he's made $13 billion on the trade, I'm making $2 billion on the trade. I'm not trading, I'm engineering. I'm engineering a better world. I want Bitcoin to spread because I think it's going to engineer a better world for 8 billion people. I'm engineering a better company at MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is a better company today than it was 4 years ago. A company that can delight its customers. I like making money for my shareholders. I like making money for my employees. I like actually providing a better product for the customer. And people on the outside that don't get Bitcoin, they think, oh, well, that's a speculative asset. It's like, I was on television yesterday. When's it going to go down to 30,000? How can you even ask that question? You don't even understand how this works. People that don't understand engineering don't understand it's perfect money. It was engineered to win. How do you know it's going to win? It's like, how do you know the plane's going to fly? How do you know the gun's going to fire? How do you know the stairs are going to work? Because I'm an engineer. That's what engineers do. We build stuff. We build rockets. So I think the engineering is key. And the same is true with MicroStrategy. People think, well, that's like you're just getting lucky. You're trading, whatever. We're engineering something. It's a crypto transformer we've engineered here. Just the fact that you have never seen a nuclear reactor doesn't mean that the nuclear reactor doesn't work. It's like, well, when's the nuclear reactor going to stop spitting out electricity? It's not going to spit out electricity as long as we operate the thing properly. The plane's going to keep flying, right? The gun's going to keep firing. And so I'm not a trader, I'm an engineer.
Bitcoin will win, but
Not everybody's going to.
关注我，带你抓住牛市机会，早日实现财富自由。